Good morning, everybody. Morning. It's Friday, and you remembered you're here. We did have a couple of people who forgot last Friday. Yes, how could that happen? But they did. So anyway, I think everyone's here today, so a very special welcome, and we need to get this show on the road. Another exciting day. Who was here last week? Did you enjoy Verity?
Oh, yes.
Yes, it was great, wasn't it? Really nice to hear that she's got this organisation that's moving forward with farmers on climate action. So farmers are now moving themselves forward. There's a way to go, but that's good news that they're moving that way. So excellent. We normally start the morning with an acknowledgement of country to pay respect for the traditional custodians of the land, which is in this area are the Gubbi Gubbi people, and we'd like to pay respect for the First Peoples, for their elders, past, present and future. And we welcome everybody in the local dialect, which is Wanya Nala. Do we have any people who've not been to Friday Forum before? We're all oldies and goodies, hey? Wow, that's pretty cool. Okay, well you all know the story, so please make sure you do remember, if you haven't already done so, it's a good time to silence your mobile phone. We have an excellent talk this morning with Grant here from the Noosa Council. He's here to share with us what's going to happen, a little bit about what's happening in Noosa in terms of adapting or adaptation to climate change. So that will be very interesting indeed. Now, if you wanted to help avoid those plastic bags, it's turtle catching time, as you probably know, and the people at Coolum and North Shore Coast Care have launched these bags as an alternative to taking plastic bags shopping. So you can buy them for just $5 at all the usual outlets for Coolum Coast Care, including the nursery at Coolum. Now, while we're talking about plastic and plastic getting into the ocean, plastic causing problems for turtles, well, I was quite surprised when I read this. I didn't know that the likelihood of a coral reef becoming diseased increased 20-fold when plastic was present. Did you know that? It's pretty shocking, really, isn't it? It's a very, very shocking little line. And of course, we all know the amount of plastic that we're putting into the environment is absolutely massive. 6.3 billion tonnes in 2015. I don't think it's gone down since then, sadly. It'd be nice to think it was. A lot of people are making an effort, so let's hope in the future it will start to turn the corner. Greenpeace is really focusing on this topic for a bit, and they're sort of saying, really, we should be expecting a lot more from our governments. We should be expecting a lot more from our corporations. And they've, of course, singled out one of the big ones. Coca-Cola sells over 100 billion single-use bottles a year. Isn't that amazing? I just find it quite astonishing. So we can reduce and recycle, we can do all these sorts of things, but really, what do you think we can do to Coca-Cola? Exactly. I don't buy Coca-Cola bottles, and that's really the simplest thing you can do. Vote with your pocket, don't buy it, and it's going to be much better than reusing or recycling. Just don't buy it in the first place. But that's true of all plastics. If we can avoid buying something that's plastic, use something else instead, it's a much better option if we can. Doesn't always work, but at least every little bit helps. So it's worth thinking about that. Now, who's been on the Great Sandy Strait Cruise? Yes, oh, loads of you. Did you enjoy it?
Yes.
Was it a great day out? Did you learn a lot?
Yes, we saw dugong.
Saw dugong.
Turtles.
Turtles. Okay, well, there are just 2 more dates left. Just 2 dates left. Can't find my little pointer here today. I know, it's off the screen. Cruise dates, 11th of March, 20th of March are the 2 dates that are still available. So if you want tickets, you need to start booking soon. And the booking is cruises@fido.org.au. Remember, FIDO, Fraser Island Defenders Organisation, they're now the organising body. Cruises@fido.org.au to book your place.
How much do it?
It's $100, Barry. $100. And you get lunch and morning tea.
5 hours.
A 5-hour cruise. It's pretty good value, really, for $100.
Expert commentary.
Expert commentary. What more could you possibly want?
Are we ready?
Now, we tried to show you this last week, but we've sorted out we've got a different approach. And this is really a campaign that is being run by The Guardian to actually highlight the fact that we need more help in the environment. So let's start by having a look at this short video clip.
Nope. We went back. How did we do that?
Start by having a short video.
We'll start.
Why is that?
I don't know. Let me. No.
It's just...
No. Don't move it around.
Where's Spencer?
Something goes wrong when this video sits.
This whole area should be a national park. We don't believe we're trespassing. We're quite prepared to be arrested if necessary.
The Franklin River is like a campground, beach-ridden ditch.
Back in the Franklin time, 6,000 people came to that protest, 1,500 were arrested, 500 went to jail. I run into those people quite often now and they say it's the best thing they did in their life, or they're so glad they did that and that the Franklin's running free to the sea. Under current legislation, the Franklin would be dammed and just a dead moat. The High Court has upheld peaceful protest as part of our democracy, but governments are putting penalties on it which make it prohibitive. But that's what's been brought in to enable the exploiters to dam, mine, log, fish, four-wheel drive through sensitive parts of the Australian environment and indeed its Aboriginal heritage.
I think it's highly unlikely that we would see decisions made today, such as we had in the past, whether it was Franklin Dam, whether it was Kakadu, whether it was the Daintree rainforest, for 2 reasons. One, the political will, and secondly, the capacity of environment ministers in Conservative governments to exercise proper duty of care over the environment. Both of those things are now absent. We've hit rock bottom. And it's terrible because it's never been a more serious time to get stuck into looking after our environment.
If the National Environment Laws actually lived up to their name, the Environment Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act, that would be a great outcome because I think most Australians want to see the environment protected and biodiversity conserved. The primary problem with the laws is they do neither of those things. The nature of the EPBC Act means that the Environment Minister, as a sort of proxy decision maker or adjudicator, has to stand back and actually can't be part of the public debate. Now we think that's crazy.
At the moment, there's a push to silence environmental charities. I think this is very dangerous because in a democracy, we have multiple voices. And they provide checks and balances. These laws are being pushed by the mining industry. No politician wakes up and says, we're going to screw over the charities. They don't think that way. They love charities. Now, the mining industry already has huge amounts of money. They already have political accessibility. Now they're trying to take away the one thing that the people have, the right to come together as a group to protest and to speak.
You know, one of the reasons why the Places You Love Alliance was formed and that the leadership of the environmental movement has come together so strongly was partly in reaction to just the extreme hostility and the extreme attack on the existing laws by the federal government, first led by obviously Tony Abbott and then carried through by Malcolm Turnbull.
Well, good morning.
This was a shock, and I think it was a shock to most Australians to think that we'd really want to turn back the clock 40 years, that we would want to delist World Heritage Areas, that we'd want to log old growth forests.
Here in Australia, we have a free and open democracy, and we either use that to protect this environment or we lose it. And nobody will be more culpable than Australians if that happens in this century, when we know what the threats to the environment for our grandkids are.
Yeah, pretty good, mate. I think it was worth showing. I'm sure many of you have seen it already, but it is very much worth showing. And this is a whole campaign that's going to run on and on for quite a number of weeks, because quite surprisingly The Guardian has succeeded in raising a large amount of money to support them with this campaign. So there's a lot of public money behind it now, and that's really good because there is a real need. And one of the things there's a lot of work done last year. There is a view out there by an environmental panel group that's been working now for quite some time that we need a totally independent body to look after the environment, and it needs to be based on a federal basis, not state by state. I mean, it's so simple, it's so plainly obvious to just about anybody, but no one wants to give up their little bit of whatever it is they've got.
Power.
Is it power? Yeah, whatever it is, they don't want to give it up. So we've now got this situation where the federal Environment Department seems to have less, well, not just seems, actually has less and less money every year. And that's a fairly scary thing. And when you're actually looking at this, that headline is a bit shocking, isn't it? Should we be giving our tax money to miners? Do you like to do that? Do you want to do that? Did you know you were doing that? More importantly. Every Australian is, that's right. Now we're having, in a period of time where budget spending has risen by 10%, we have got environmental spending going down by 9%. That's not a good look in a country that is as wealthy as Australia. What it shows us really is that, I could be fairly crude about it, but we could say our elected representatives don't give a toss about the environment. It isn't one of their priorities. All they seem to care about is money, money, money. I know I can't sing, but for effect, it is really a big problem. And they are putting our country, our environment, our climate under enormous strain. I just wanted to harp on about this for just a couple more minutes, if you'll forgive me. This mining sector is receiving 2.5 billion in fuel tax credits. Of that, 980 million is going to coal companies, coal miners. And that just happens to be more than what the Federal Environment Department is spending on the environment. Now, last week Verity talked about, we talked about why don't farmers, if farmers feel so passionately about climate action, why do they vote for the National Party that really is anything but supportive of the environment? And one of the reasons might in fact be this, because farmers also get this tax credit, 40.1 cents per litre for all their diesel fuels. Now I've got no argument with that. It is a bipartisan agreement that we rebate this 40.1 cents in the litre to a number of bodies, including farmers, but I do object strongly to giving it to miners. particularly coal miners, who are doing such a lot of damage to our environment.
And making such a lot of money.
And making such a lot of money. They are so wealthy. They don't need our few little coins that we're giving them. 950 million worth. Peanuts, isn't it?
$980 million environment levy.
We could. That would be good, right? I like that idea very much. Yes, I thought you'd like that. Now, Isabel, I always listen to what you say, because you often reflect what a lot of people are thinking and don't say it. But you asked last week about the Murray-Darling. And it is being discussed at this very time in Parliament. But here's just a little look at something what's happening.
When the river's flowing, the people are thriving. But certainly now, big irrigators are stealing water from us. We want to show senators what big business is doing to our river system. We're here to ask the senators to restore this river system to health. Growing up as a kid, we would spend hours in the river, fishing, hunting, going out bush. You know, our whole community relied on the river. River red gums are sacred to my people. When a baby is in its mother's womb, the Murray believes that the spirit waits behind a tree until the baby's born. The old people would sit underneath the red river gum and we'd talk through the leaves of the red river gum. But certainly now the trees are dying, the river's dying. We're probably 70 k's from one of the largest cotton properties in Australia, Covey Station. Covey Station's put a dam across the Colgar River, blocks all the water, diverts it into their huge storage facilities which can hold as much as Sydney Harbour. And the red river gums require flooding once every 3 to 5 years, otherwise they're going to die out. The frequency of flooding is blown out from something like 1 in every 3 years to 1 in every 10 to 15 years. They're taking the water out of the river for profit. That's stealing water from the environment. It's stealing water from the community, and it's stealing water from the people. We want to show senators what big business and big cotton is doing to our river system. We want to show the senators the devastation of stealing water, diverting rivers for profit. I'd like people to make their voices known to the Australian Senate. They have the power to implement the Basin Plan in full. And we need them to vote with their heart for the people, not for big business.
Okay, that's a pretty telling video. It's a very complex topic which we can't obviously cover today in 2 minutes. But I think it's just important to at least answer the question that Isabel said, what's happened about all that stuff, all the theft of the water? We know there's a New South Wales Environment Minister has been stepped down. There's been a lot more coverage in this last week about another New South Wales minister who changed the plan after their department had put it forward, and this gave a lot more money to those lovely cotton farmers. Now, I'm not saying cotton farmers shouldn't have their share, but they're stealing water from other people, and they're stealing water from the environment.
And from other cotton farmers.
And from other cotton farmers, that's very true. So we have got a big issue here. It is not as simple as black and white, but unfortunately it will go to the Senate, and I think it will be thrown out of the Senate to, I think the Labor Party has decided to vote against it.
Yeah, there was a disallowance motion,
So
a
it's
little bit of a stay, but yeah.
stay of execution for the moment, but we don't really know. But anyway, I haven't had any feedback from anyone who'd like to have a say this week. Everyone's gone quiet. But I can tell you that I was just going to spend 2 minutes talking about electric cars. Does anyone here drive an electric car?
Martians do.
The Martians. Yes, there's one in space at the moment, yes. What a terrible indulgence that was, really. He does a lot of good stuff, but he also is a bit flamboyant at times. But I think that's a really sexy little car. I'd love it. But I think the interesting thing was, a few of us were talking at the pub on Sunday about electric cars, and I was listening to what everyone said, and I thought, I actually don't know anything about electric cars. And I wonder what they're saying. Is it the latest? Are we up to date? do people really know what's going on? What do you think? Do you think you're well informed?
Well, there's an opportunity to become more informed. Zero Emissions Noosa are holding the Electric Vehicle Expo on the 12th of May at the Noosa football grounds. Were you going to say about that, or is that what you were
No,
saying?
I wasn't, but that's a very good comment to make.
Yeah.
Karoy's new charging station.
Well, I'll cover that. Yeah.
I saw a photo on the Empire with the gun club with the dogs set on the top box.
Yeah, woof, woof. Yeah.
And they've got a battery on the rail of 1,000
Charging stations. Well, do you know
The
what?
electric highways.
We've got it in Queensland. Bloody hell, mate, look at this. Look at that. Karoy. The longest, well, they're claiming it's the world's longest electric vehicle superhighway in a single state.
I've been using taxis and they said to me, oh, we're half and half. How can you be half now?
Well, you can have hybrid cars.
Yeah.
Hybrids.
I said, really? I said, oh, just write it down in my diary.
Hybrids were a way a lot of people went because the electric cars, the batteries had a very short life, but things have moved on. And so anyway, in Australia, the uptake has been very, very slow indeed, much slower than the rest of the world. And I think it's just interesting to know why. And I think the discussion that we were having, the pub chat, was that, well, you can't go very far in an electric car and a battery, can you? How far do you reckon you can go?
300 k's.
I think on average it's 350 kilometres. That's not bad, filling up every 350 kilometres. And pretty good when you can fill up for free. I really like that. I don't know how long the Queensland government's going to maintain that. It is free. Oh, eventually, but for the moment it's free. That's what I'm saying. We don't know, but even where you have to pay, it's an awful lot cheaper than fuel, than petrol or diesel. Well, that's a very good point. So that's the other thing that people say, well, no, you can't go very far. Well, 350 kilometres, some cars can go further.
Yeah, and a lot of people just do shorter trips anyway. It's
That's
not
right.
necessarily meant to be for long.
Exactly. But to answer that question, David, 10 minutes to fill up at the moment. But there's a lot of work going on to reduce that. So 10 minutes is not too long, really. Is it? So are electric cars as bad as you thought? Or do you think they've got a bit of future? And Narelle, just tell us again, where's this expo on?
It's on at the Noosa AFL grounds. There'll be more information coming out. It's on the 12th of May. And that's from 10 till 2, I believe. Yeah, so it's an electric vehicle expo. It's put on by Zero Emissions Noosa. So there'll be more
Well done.
information.
Well done. Yes,
I'm
Isabel.
sure it'll be a definite thing because my grandfather was a blacksmith and he used to shoe all these big, lovely big Clydes out and they used to run out to see the first car coming down Clifton's main street. And Grandfather said,
It'll never take off.
It'll never come with all these beautiful horses. But let it go. I think it'll come.
It'll come. It'll come. Oh, it's coming everywhere else around the world. It's just Australia is a little bit backward in many regards when it comes to the environment. But anyway, yes.
Has anyone been watching Wild Oz, ABC,
Yes.
live streaming?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know. Where's Balda? Is she here? She's not here. Oh, there you are. Balda, yes. Have you been watching Wild Oz? On no. It's streaming on ABC, and you can watch Daryl, your speaker, Daryl Jones. His bird bath has been on Wild Oz.
His bird feeder.
His bird feeder.
But there's also
there were other things as well.
Yes, 16th of January, 16th of February, finishes, but lots of different things.
But it's worth going on. It's just a live thing. It's just the other day when I looked at it, it was Daryl's bird feeder, and you just saw it and watching birds come in. And there's a whole lot of other text, but it's just actually live, interactive filming. And just happened to be Daryl's getting a lot of publicity at the moment. His book must be out soon.
That amazing thing on SEQ2, the waste, that funny man that did the...
He does a great job, doesn't he?
amazing, and he's so nice with the bananas up north.
Yeah,
and all
no,
those
that's great.
Bananas are going to be, and then he's talking to the Woolworths man. Yeah, we know, 20 years it's been going on. He's amazing, and he does it so nicely. The sense of humour.
All right. Well, we're going to move on because we're running out of time. We want to give our guest speaker as much time as we can. Just a reminder, next week, February the 16th, it is the Bird Observers Day, and that should be a great presentation. I'm sure many of you have heard Greg before, and you probably read his blog. If you haven't seen Greg's blog, please go on it. Just look up Greg Roberts and you'll find that on the internet. But it's always interesting. Not all of us get out as far into the sea as this, so we may not all get to see these birds firsthand, so it'll be great coming and seeing some of Greg's brilliant photography. Now we've had a change for February the 23rd. Unfortunately, our guest speaker, who was going to talk on carp, has been delayed until later in the year because of ill health in his family. But Rod has stepped into the fray with a talk about science called Beyond Reasonable Doubt. Now, we'd really like to invite some of our politicians to come along, Rod, because science doesn't seem... Sorry?
Nobody knows all about carp.
Does he? Well, we don't want him here.
Shouting about it in Parliament.
Yeah. But it would be nice, wouldn't it, Rod, to have a few people here who really needed to learn about science. But hopefully we will all enjoy Rod's talk. He does great talks, always with an enormous amount of effort going into them. We've looked forward to Scott Burnett's talk for about a year now.
And we've got our fingers crossed that it's going to happen.
Disappearing speakers of some kind of
Something like that, yes, yes. Okay, but some good stuff coming forward, and on the lighter side now. Do you ever wake up, kiss the person sleeping beside you, and feel glad to be alive? Neil does. Yay, Neil. Good on you, Neil. Yes. Well, I do too. It's wonderful, isn't it? There is a little bit of a problem here with this one. I just did, and apparently will not be allowed back on this airline. Oops. All right.
Guy,
yes.
I also look in the mirror and say, geez, I'm glad to see you.
Yes, that's right. You pinch yourself and say, whoops, I'm alive. Fantastic. Yes. All right. Now, thank you from everybody here, and just by means of an introduction to our guest speaker from Noosa Council, Grant Innes, and Grant's going to talk about some of the adaptation plans that Noosa Council is developing to help us adapt to the future, because things are going to change. Things are changing, aren't they? Yes, if we've got farmers coming on board saying climate action, then we know things are really changing. Now, there's lots of places around Australia. It isn't just Noosa. Obviously, climate change affects everybody, and everybody on the country, well even Uluru, it's saying, is going to be affected, which is pretty amazing. I keep running out of battery here for some strange reason.
I'm sure a new battery.
And they're saying we won't get as many tourists going to the Red Centre because it's going to be too hot. Yeah, and that's probably true. Lord Howe Island, which we think that beautiful, wonderful environment, that's also going to be affected by the change, by sea level rise and by temperature rise. So bushfires in Tasmania, that's one we've covered before. That's expected to be a major problem in the future. Sport tourism is likely to be greatly affected by the changing climate. That will probably please some people, but you know. And the wine industry has been well ahead on this. The wine industry has been moving south now for probably the last decade, and now we've got a lot more wineries in Tasmania, in the cool climates, and they find they can actually produce really good quality wines down there and sell their wines at a much higher price. So they're moving out of places like the Barossa Valley and the like. So this is just really setting the scene for Grant, because I'm going to let him do his own thing and tell us.
And I can put his mic on.
And Liz is about to go and find him and put his mic on.
No, he's going to come forward.
Okay, so come on, Grant, come on down.